the relationship. I always want to start the YouTube video as, hey guys, welcome, it's your boy Evans, ha ha, we're gonna start talking about um, active record and the many relationships. So the relationship that we're looking for is many to many, right? So what we have is squirrel, right? And the squirrel, what? Has many, let's just put it this way so it looks even clearer. Wow. All that London has got to me. It has many, what? Trees? Right? And then trees has many squirrels. Something like that. That's like the many to many, right? And then the nest is the join. Table. Yeah? So far, so good? You don't have to copy this down. I'm literally going to push this code immediately. But if you want to, and it helps you with like the tactile feel and memory, feel free. I just didn't want you to feel like if you didn't copy it, you weren't going to get it. So what are the models here?
You should notice classes be singular and not plural.
Very good, Parker. Absolutely. All right. How's that? Cool. Yes. Classes are singular and tables are, they're plural. Yes. Loud audience today. So what are the models? Yep. Squirrel, nest. Whoa. You see that? And tree. Yeah? Nothing too wild. So we should test this, right? We should create the relationships, create the models, and we should test it in the array console. I put this here because I was actually going to be doing it. But what I mean by test the array console is just make sure your environment's good to go, right? First thing I said is when you get a new file, just look through what's going on. What do we have here? App, models, and what should we have in models? Right, the classes, right? The squirrel, the nest, and the tree. The config, we all know this bad boy right here. It's just doing bundler. I'm having a SQLite 3 database, and I'm just going to put it in a file called development.sqlite. This right here, who knows what this does? Was this explained to you? Okay. Do you remember if you were to create a new instance in your database, you have like all this like messaging that comes out, right? It goes like commit, select, like insert into table, blah, 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 question marks, and it's like weird colored, right? This is what is known as like the standard out logger. What something is happening on the back end, all that magic, and it prints to your console, right? That's standard out. And what we're doing is we're logging, we're creating a new logger instance of what is happening in the background. That allows you to see what the active record magic is happening in plain SQL. So it allows you to look at it, see if it's doing what you want it to. Like, so for example, if you're doing a delete, you want to delete a record, and all of a sudden you see in the SQL query, insert into, you're like, maybe I wrote something wrong there, right? And if you're trying to like add a record, it should say insert into, but if it says select star from, you're like, So that's why that's there, right? When you do your projects and you want that to go away because you want like your CLI app to look sexy and clean, you can, I'll show you how to get rid of it. Any questions so far on what this is? Right, so when you see things like this, first thing I would do, I'd copy and paste all of 9, I'd Google it. Like, what is this doing? Right? It helps me understand what my original code base is so that I can understand how everything comes together. Yeah? Or after you Google it for a little bit and you have like no idea, like, oh, it's standard out, puts the terminal, blah, blah, and like that didn't make sense to you, like ask us. You made a fair attempt at trying to figure out what it is and you want some more clarity, that's what we're here for. Yeah? And then this is just going to require everything in my app models class. So that I'll have access to all the models that I build eventually, right? So in my database folder, I've got migrations, right? This I just made a generic one so I can like have a template to look at. I was telling you my environment was all wonky. I was like making sure it worked before I jumped in here. This right here, I was making fun of it earlier, but you're not really supposed to read this in like English, so to speak. This is a SQLite file. It's in here, and this is where your data lives. right? This IDE cannot actually read and break this down, and that's okay. So don't worry that it looks like weird jumble garbage. But you can show your friends, like, look, I'm in the Matrix. I can read this code. But I mean, you know, that's just for fun. But you can't. I mean, I can't read this. All right. As we add more things to it, as we create more migrations, as we add more seed data, this will get more and more complex. But again, just so you know, it's not human readable, and it's not supposed to be. So if you're ever confused or you're wondering why, it is designed that way. This is written in SQL in binary on the back end and is interpreted. So that's really about it. There's nothing sexy or crazy about it. Yeah. All right, schema. What is schema? Besides like a confusing word in programming.
It's kind of like it represents the architecture of a database or multiple tables.
Yes. Thank you, Forbes. So what he said was it's a visual representation of your database, right? How many tables you have, right? What the columns are in that table, right? What the fields are for that table, if it's a string, if it's a datetime, if it's an integer, right? And more specifically and importantly, what current version you're on. And I'm going to go a little bit more into that here in a little bit. So right now we're on version 0, which would make sense because I haven't done any migrations, right? There's no additions to my table yet. And if visual representation doesn't make sense right now, it will be shortly. So just give that 2 seconds. Any questions on schema and how to define it?
It's not how to define it, but when does it pop up? Like in the sense that like some of these labs, like there's no schema
Okay.
there, or it just
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thanks for bringing that up. Schema is a file that is automatically generated every time you run your migrations. Some of the labs are not wired perfectly, and the schema file will not auto-generate. We have been through this enough times. In those specific labs where the schema file does not auto-generate, you do not need it to complete the lab. You don't need the schema.rb to complete any labs, but it helps you look at what's going on in your database as a visual representation. But if it's not coming up, don't panic. If it's breaking your code, come get one of us and we'll take a look at it.
What about the development? As to, like,
Development also,
is it volatile?
it is auto-generated, right? And that is going to be coming from this file right here. Once I establish active record in here, I run bundle, I run a migration, that will come up. And I'll show you. Matter of fact, let's do it. All right, what's this? Who cares? Bloop, gone. All right, schema, that's great. But who cares? That file stinks, right? Cool, gone, right? I'm just gonna show you that it auto-generates. That's all. So if you don't have it, it should just come up. Any questions on that so far? Those are great questions. Those are the kind of questions I'm expecting because that happens, like weird things happen in labs and you're like, wait, why is this not working? I thought this was supposed to be working, right? How can I connect these dots? Please, that's what we're here for.
So what exactly is auto-generating inside of the rig file? Is there like a command that's like prompting it to like pop up?
It will happen in the active record under the hood magic. Yeah, but it's done through Rake, so you're on the right path. Great question. Anything else? Yes.
I have a question about the logger. Is that something you have to call?
No, the logger is in the environment file here.
Yeah.
So it will run a new logger instance and it will print it to the console. The standard out is where it's going to print to, so you could see it. And I will show you exactly what I mean here shortly. So if I don't specifically mention it, just raise your hand. That's a great question. Questions so far, environment? Awesome. Seeds. We learned about seeds? Raise your hand if you heard about seeds.rb before. Okay, I'm going to mention. So seeds is where you store all of your seed data. What seed data means, because you probably heard me say it a few times, is this is where all your test data is. So do you remember back when we were in OO land, before we had the magic and power of the V8 engine that is Active Record, we used to do this, like, oh snap, what am I typing here? We'd be like squirrel.new, and then I'd pass in like the name, and then the name would be like Princess Acorn, fluffy pants, right? And then every time I exited pry, that instance was gone. I put it in the runner file, that combo file, so that all the instances exist. What I do here is I do a very similar thing. I'm going to run something called rake dbseed, and I'll show you what that is here in a little bit. And it's going to make all these instances, save them also to the database, so I can start playing and testing my code. I don't actually have to run it ever again. And if I do, I'll show you what happens. I'll show you how to fix it, and we'll break it down. Right? Seeds are your test data. Seeds are your test data. That's all you need to know. So if I said, who understands what seeds.rb is? You should raise your hand, and all you have to say is, that's where my test data lives. That's where I initially create all my test data. Any questions on it so far? Sorry, my voice is hoarse. I may or may not have had an amazing time in London. All right? You good? All right, cool. So we know this, right? Any questions on any of these gems? Raise your hand if you've seen all of these gems. Sure, I'll break them down. So active record is just a gem. If I explain what gems are, raise your hand if you have a semblance, some shred of an idea of what a gem is. Johnny, you good?
Gems, some combination of code or something. A bunch.
Yeah, it's somebody else's code, right, that was written, that all you're doing essentially is just importing that code into your code so that you can use all of the classes and all the auto magic that's happening under the hood. So active record allows us to automatically do like the self.all, right, when you have like the ORM mapped. And your migrations are done. You can call all of these built-in methods for you already. Yeah? So we're pulling from something called Sinatra Active Record. There's also a Rails version. You'll learn more about that in Mod 2. Just know that there are different versions. You're using the Sinatra version. Rake is like a task builder for Ruby. And who wants me to go over what Rake is? Okay, we're going to move on. Require all you know. SQLite is just specifying the database that we're going to be using. Everyone's favorite. And I have something called Faker. Who's heard of Faker? Who wants me to go over what Faker is? All right, cool. So Faker is a gem that allows you to very quickly, and it's really fun, make up information. It would be great for a class like this, because when I ask like, hey, can you give me a squirrel name? I have to come up with Princess Acorn. You don't have to. Faker will do that for you, and I'll show you how to use this magnificent gem here in this lecture.
Can you, in terms of the version of like active record, how does that work? Sometimes I'm just writing random versions, I deleted the words, it doesn't work. Like it's
What do you mean versions of active record?
You're talking about in your migration file?
You talking about this?
Yeah.
This?
Is it required, like for some labs, I'll put it in, it works, for other labs, I delete it out, and then it works, like it's very confusing.
Yes, this actually recently became important to actually put in. So based on the version of active record you have, you might actually have to put the version in the bracket. And it's because they want to make sure that the version you're using matches what migration you're pulling. Andrew, you have additional?
Yeah. I touched on this very, very, very briefly on Wednesday. Remember how we said that, like, back in the quote-unquote olden days of active record, there were two different syntaxes, right? Def up, def down. Two methods that we would have to write. Up would add something to our schema. Down would like remove a column or get rid of something. And then in later versions of active record, this def change, right, the one method to rule them all was kind of released. We just have to specify the version moving forward if we're using like a later version. I think it's like past 4 dot something or other. It's required. But the only thing that we need to worry about is if it throws you that error, just add that version in the brackets and you should be fine.
Yeah.
But then I had to delete it to get it to work. Is it because of the lab?
It might be that lab, and I will take a deeper look into that later.
Yeah.
Because that seems like a very specific issue. What I'll do is I'll run the migration with and without it, so you can see what the error looks like. Yeah? Cool, great question. Cool on gems. This is just the sweet notes. This is the rake file, right? Are we comfortable with rake? Who wants me to go a little bit into this rake file? And just raise your hand if you want me to go into it. All right, cool. So we're pulling everything from the environment because we want to make sure we have, remember, environment doesn't require all. It's going to have all my models, right? I want to make sure I have access to Rake. So under the Sinatra Active Record, I'm just requiring the Rake folder in there. I can make my own Rake tasks, right? So if I wanted to, I can just put like describe. What it's going to be is like silly message. And then this is the name of it, right? Like Wangtron. And then this is what it's going to do. It's just going to be puts, right? Best message ever, right? So when I do this, oh, I'm still zoomed in, that's why. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Oops, cool. All right, I can do rake-t. Ah, whoops.
No, got it.
Yeah. There's a Rake Wangtron over here, right? Because that's the task name. And then the description is just right here where I put in. And let's see what happens when I run Rake Wangtron. Who can take a wild guess? Just wild guess, right? I don't know. It's just going to do the command I put it in. So when I said that Rake is just like a Ruby like builder, you can just build tasks in Ruby to do things for you. This will become way more useful as you do the same thing over and over and over. You can just build a method, so to speak, in this that will run everything for you. Does that make sense?
I have a question. The other Rake method has a database, right? Rake.
The namespace one?
Yeah, namespace.
These.
Do something with Wangtron, like create something in the database to invoke the Wangtron.
You want Wangtron in the DB namespace?
Yeah, can you do that?
Yeah. So the example that I gave on Wednesday, if you guys remember this, we had like a namespace of pizza, and then under that was like a task that was like hut. So if we would do like Rake pizza :hut, we would like print out our message, right? That's all what's going on here, right? Like all of these tasks are namespaced under this DB, right? Because they're all relevant to DB tasks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the point is, like, you see how Rake console doesn't have the DB? It's because I created it manually here. All my DBs are coming from this require. And that's going to give me the auto magic of Rake. I mean, rather, the auto magic of Active Record. And I utilize it in Rake. Yeah?
So does Rake only usually refer to databases unless you explicitly?
You can use Rake for anything. Like, if I wanted to, like, who knows what this command does? Touch. Right? There's the same thing in Ruby. I can't remember what it is. But there's like a makefile version in Ruby. So whatever that command is called touch, I would literally do touch, and then I would just name the file, like new file.rb, something like that.
So just confirm all the database things when you do Rake-t.
Yeah.
Evergreen, those are all being pulled from
This-
Sinatra.
Yeah, Sinatra, right. So in theory, right, this is not the actual command for Rake, this is like a Unix command, but there's like a makefile, like file.new, that's what it is, file.new, right, in Ruby. And I can just pass in these params. If I were to run Rake Wangtron, it would make this new file. So Rake has like a very powerful application, and you can automate a lot of the things that you normally do. So for example, just under the hood, when I run this file, right, Rake DB create migration, what happens, right? A new file under migrate gets created. So you can already see somewhere in the DB create migration Rake task, there's a file.new happening, and it's just all being built out. That make sense? Good, good. All right. Let's not get too deep into Rake. Just have an understanding that Rake is like a builder for you, and you can do things with Rake. And what we're going to be using is all these Sinatra Active Record Rake things. If you want to Google it, right, I would literally Google this, and then you can actually see the code of what under the hood of what all these are really doing. And if you're really, really curious, I'll sit down with you and I'll break it all down under the hood. Yeah? Awesome. Any questions on this Rake file? Awesome. So let's get back to these notes, right? We have these models, right? We want to test. So I want to get into the console just to then make sure my console is working, right? 1 plus 1. Cool. Right? Because sometimes, like you can't even get into Rake for some reason. Maybe you wrote some code and it's not compiling right. Whatever. So I should run bundle install, right? Bundle is an alias for bundle install. Shorthand, if I run bundle or bundle install, it'll be the same command. Yeah? Awesome. Look at that. Already on 15. So fast. Let's create these migrations. Yeah? How do I do that? How would I create a migration? I'm just curious if anyone can just help me out here. Not that I need any hints or anything. Just wondering how I just create a migration. Does anyone want to help me? I'm asking you to just come up with it out of nowhere. I know it's tough. Wow. Did you study? All right. What did I say about this? That has like the best error message ever. Yeah. Is this too small? Should I blow it up? I'm just gonna do it anyway. Cool. So no name specified. Example usage. Rake DB migration. Name create users. Cool. So what do we need to create here actually? We need to create all the migrations, right? So the migrations, are they the class or are they the table?
Table.
They're the table, right? Because I'm going to manually create the Ruby classes. So if this is the table, should it be plural or singular? Cool. So squirrels? Yeah? And then what's that amazing command where I can just bring this back? Up. That should save you a lot of time. So I created squirrels, and what else do I need? Cool. What else do I need? Money. All right, so I created these migrations. All I did was I created the migration. Let me ask you a question. Does it exist in my database right now? Who thinks yes, it exists in my database right now? Okay. Who thinks it doesn't exist right now? Who's just not really sure? Okay. If you're not sure, just lean one way. That way I'll know, right? It does not exist in the database. And here's how I know. Your single source of truth for your database is the schema file. Remember I said it was a visual representation of your database? Where's the schema file? I blasted it. It's gone. If the schema file does not exist, you do not have a database. With the exception of like the labs, which is why you want to test, right? So let's test. I have these migrations, right? I can always go into Rake console. And how would I like ask for information in my database? Scroll what? Dot first or all? All should be give me what? A hash, a number, an empty array because like there's nothing in it. So the model doesn't even exist, right? The database doesn't exist. So what should we do? Now that I've created the migrations, what should I do? I hear a lot of like whispering. From the migration, I need to test. Yep, that's exactly what I heard. Cool. I should test first. Test, please. You're on the right path. I love it. But let's test, right?
Is there a difference between doing a create migration, creating the table that way, and just like manually opening a file under the DB?
What do you mean creating it? Oh, okay. This is a very good question, and I want to address this as soon as I can. Thank you for bringing that up. It's in my notes to bring up. Who understands these funky numbers here? Like 2018 08 014 3355. Who gets it? Totally understands why there's numbers there, not necessarily like the numbers themselves, right? Okay, for those that don't know, this is the exact timestamp that you made it, and that is going to determine the order in which the migrations run. And this is so important because if I have a create customer, right? Create squirrels, trees, nests. if I were to, let's say, before the nest class is created, let's say between trees and nests, there was another one right here. And it says, add column to nest table. Would that work? The answer is no, because the nest table doesn't even exist yet. Your migrations will run in the exact order they're created. So they must be in a specific order, right? This crazy wonky number is where your version is going to come from. And let's test, right? So how do we test? How do we test our migrations? Just
rate DB status or migrate status.
Migrate status. Displays the status of migrations, right? Don't worry about this one. I just want to see what comes up right now before anything. Cool. This is one way to definitely test, right? The other way I like to test is I just migrate them. Cool. All of these were made in exactly 0 seconds. Why?
There's no information.
There's nothing in them, right? There's like nothing happening. You are done creating this table because there's nothing in there, right? Like if I was all, this is gonna be weird, but just bear with me for a bit. Like let's say I was your dad, right? I'm not. Big surprise. Let's say I was, and I gave you a long list of chores. I was like, hey, before you eat dinner, you have to do all of these, and I handed you an empty piece of paper. And then I immediately were like, hey, you done with those? You'd be like, yeah. There's nothing on the to-do list. There's no tasks. There's nothing to migrate. So it finished immediately, right? So what should have happened? I get, oh, hey, what's this? Oh, that came back. Cool, right? Oh, yeah, right? Yeah? No clapping? All right, that's fine. Schema came back, all right? Even though I blew it away earlier, I was like, you know, schema's whack. Yeah?
Does that file actually perform a function, or is it just for the user to be able to see?
The schema doesn't necessarily perform a function. It is just for you to see and reference. But yeah, good question. So even though this is like a bunch of weird garbled nonsense, there's just nothing in the database. But the database exists. All right? There's nothing really in it. Unfortunately, let's take a look at this. All right? Cool. Let's just stretch this out. What is this? What version is this? All right, 153.926. 153.926. It ran all of my migrations. That's how I know which one it's on. So if I were to do rake db create migration, would that affect my schema? Just creating the migration, does it affect the schema? Let's find out. Let's prove it. Right now, what's in my schema? Even though I migrated and I have this sweet version right here, what's in it? Nothing. That's how I know. So we talked about just the migrations itself, and I tested it. You can always check the status as well with the rake command. If you forget what it is, you can just read through these. Displays the status migrations. It's a way to test. All right. Also, like the 0 should like throw you off, right? Like that's weird. Like nothing happened here. Now that I create these migrations, what happens if I were to go into this squirrel's migration and add to it? What would happen? Would these migrations ever run again? No. My schema says that I ran version 153.926. I ran it. I will never run it ever again. Ever. I don't need to because I ran it already. So if I go in and I add stuff to this, right, like I create a table, and I add all this like high-speed stuff, if I run rake db migrate again, nothing will happen. Because the system and the computer thinks the migration file already ran. It's not going to go back and check. It's going to be like, hey, what version am I on? Everything after I'm just going to add the migration to. I'm going to migrate after that version. So how do I go back? How do I bring it back? How do I go backwards in time? Oh, wow, that seemed intuitive. If I want to go back, I'm going to roll back. And what rollback will do is it will do one migration at a time. So let's do that. It just reverted nests. Did you see that? That's all it did. Meaning my schema version should be what now? If it rolled back nests, what version should it be? Right? Check. So if I want to go all the way back, I probably have to do what? Cool. Cool. There's parameters you can put into rollback and tell it how many to go. I'll let you figure that on your own. It's not hard, but it's just a cool thing to Google and learn. Yeah? Do I need to go back one more? I can, but we don't really need the customer, right? Like, I'm never going to touch that customer table that I just kind of made. So we really don't. Did I lose anyone so far on just rollbacks, how that works, and your database? File structure. Relationships. Meaning of life. All right, great. So what's next on my notes? Tested it, bundled, we created the migrations, all right? And how did we do that? I'm just going to save this all for you. Yes. This is what iTerm is good for. iTerm too, because I don't think you can do that in... I think that's just terminal, right? This first one should be squirrels, tree, nest. Why is it so important that I didn't make nests first? What does join mean?
It's pulling information from both of these tables.
Right? I'm pulling information from the other two tables. If I had nests up here, would the other two tables exist? No, they wouldn't. So just remember, words mean things, migration, order matters, right? So the join table should come last. Check? Yes?
If I just create a file manually, is that not a good best practice?
Okay, that was the question, and I got sidetracked. The absolute best practice, and what you should be doing here to thereafter, right? Sorry, I was in London. I wanted to sound fancy. Is always run rake db migrate, create migration, right? Do not create your own migration files. In the labs, sometimes they ask you to do that. If the lab asks you to do it specifically, roll with it. But forever there on after, like in production, in all your like Sinatra Rails in future, just use the db create migration. And here's why, and I'm gonna get to your question. If I'm manually creating, right? Remember I told you how important order it matters? And then I said that you always pair program or you work on a team. Nobody like does it. Nobody Rambos like code. You know what I'm saying? It's not just you kicking down doors and like rocking down the code by yourself. So in theory, let's just say all of us are a team, right? And I work for you. And you're like, hey, Evans, I need you to make a new table. I need you to make a trees table. I'm like, bet, got you, fam. I'm going to literally do this. If I do it like the old way, right? I would do this, new file, all right? And then what would happen? I would do what? 009.create trees. Sorry, create trees.rb, something like that. Now, in theory, you're the boss, and you tell somebody else, hey, I need another table, right? Now I want to add a, I don't know, restaurant table. Because for whatever reason, squirrels need fancy dining. You're building this revolutionary app, and it's amazing. It's 2030, whatever, right? What do you think, by the way, if I'm not in the room, right, and you have 8 migrations, what do you think the next person is going to number their table? They're already going to number it 009. So when we get pushed to master, how many 009 tables will I have? 2. And what order will Active Record run them in? Probably at that point alphabetically, right? But what if, in theory, I don't know, just here, bear with me. One of them needed to come before the other. How can I guarantee that? You know what I'm saying? If you run the DB migrate, it's going to drop the timestamp. And then when you run the migrations, you should see, hey, I made this table first. This was the priority. Then I made this table. Then I made this table. So when you merge it all together, the order should work.
Just a question.
Yeah.
Is there another convention that, like, when you're actually building something that people use? Because, like, let's say you want to add another table and join that data from somewhere else on a join table, but you're adding it later.
Okay.
If you create it, it'll just have a timestamp that'll be after the
Yeah.
table you want to join to. So is there, like, a convention to keep track of that?
Yes. The question is, like, what's the convention to keep track of, like, adding columns and stuff?
Yeah.
Because of the way your timestamp is automatically generated, right? It'll be like 2018, the month, the day, 21, right? And then like the time, right? Like 11:31, whatever it is. And then you would put like add column and then like tree table. This is like basically what I'd write. And then in this migration, I would like add the column. So that when someone's just reading through the rake files, right? I'm gonna cancel out of this. When I'm just reading through, because remember, we already have 3. We barely wrote any code, right? Let's say you've been working on Snapchat or Facebook, and that app has been out for like 3, 4, 5 years, or even 7, 8 months at a startup. You're gonna have 40, 50, 100 migration files. You're gonna wanna be able to look through and be like, all right, made the table here, made the table here, added the column here, deleted the column here, changed this, added this name, boom, boom, boom. And you're gonna see the order of how everything went. And you're gonna understand, like, the progression of your app and how it lives and where it's at today, now. You got a question or did I answer it?
Yeah, just answer my question. Because I just want to ask, do we need to rename it? Because
Never-
every year, one of labs that it's a good thing about 001 this.
That was for you to understand, but never rename your migrations. Like, never rename your migrations, ever. Because it will break. They will break. You'll have to, like, delete it and start over. That's going to be bad.
So what if someone like made an error? For example, someone created the nest before the trees, and then they want to just put it back.
They made the nest before the trees, and the migration broke it.
Yeah, I just want to.
I would just roll back, and then I would, like, yeah, and then I would redo that order. If I added a column, and then somebody else added a bunch of migrations, I want to remove that column later, I will not delete the migration. I'll create a new migration that just says remove column, right? So that you could see the flow of how everything happened and where everything was and where everything went. Any questions so far on migrations, migration order, the importance, what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing? I know it's about to hit lunch, so I want it to be like at a good stopping point. I know we couldn't be with you guys Thursday and Friday, so like sometimes some of the things in the labs are a bit tricky, and that's why it's so important to go through this. But I will like explain everything after lunch. You had a question, Andrew?
I was wondering if you could go over the difference between rolling back and dropping.
Absolutely. So I'm going to answer that. Park, you had a question before you forget? All right. So what rollback does is it reverts one migration. What drop does is it drops all the data in your database, and it completely deletes your database. So, for example, let's say I had 4 or 5 tree instances and 4 or 5 scroll instances. If I roll back, I will just lose that table. It could, in fact, break some things because remember, the join table needs to know the other 2 models. So that could break because if tree doesn't exist anymore, but then I have methods and data that rely on the tree, what will happen is when I don't want to get too complicated, but the tree knows about the other 2 models. If I delete it, the foreign keys will like zero out. They'll go to nil because it doesn't really associate to a table anymore. And it may or may not break based on a lot of different parameters that I can't get too specific with. But with the drop, your database doesn't exist anymore. You have to remigrate after you do drop, and all your seed data is gone. Like scroll 1, 2, and 3 are like not even there anymore. that answer your question? Cool. Anything else on?
So as a follow-up, so then if you drop it, then you'll be at the beginning of the migration, or does it still stay at where you were?
Let's check. Yeah. Rake DB migrate. Cool, right? What's gonna happen? I'm gonna migrate the 3 that I just rolled back, right? Cool. So, what's my schema gonna say?
Still that thing.
It's still like here, which is weird. Should be at 0, but we'll need seed data to. I'll show you again when we have seed data. It should basically drop it. So I should need to do this. The active record rake and the Rails rake are a little different. Drop will drop everything, all your data in the database. Rollback just pulls 1. It reverts a migration. The Rails drop does something else. Sorry. Drop deletes all the seed data that you have, gets rid of everything. No more instances in your database. Rollback just pulls 1 migration back.
But the schema is still there, right?
Yeah, the schema's still there, yeah. You're still on the correct schema. Sorry about that. That's why I had to test.
So if you have something in the schema, it will be completely removed right from the schema, right? After you drop, right?
Drop just delete your seed data.
Just delete the seed data.
Yeah, the seed data that was seeded, and I'll explain what that means. In the same way that when you create a migration and then you migrate, you can create seed data and then you can seed the database. I know it's a lot. I knew this lecture was going to go long.
But the database will not be gone, right? The database, you mentioned it will delete the database. Now you're saying it's not going to be deleted.
What I'm saying is all the data inside the database is what drop does. It deletes all the data inside the database. Tables still exist. Questions, comments, concerns on rake tasks, schema, and all that so far? Because it's 11:59. I'm not going to ask you to stay, and so it's unfair to move forward. I will push this, like, continue. I will be lecturing a lot today, just because I know that you all want that review, so I'll hook you all up. Is this good? Is it? All right, let me just pause.
Good. Yeah.
All right, cool. So we last ran rake T, and we ran a rake migration, right? So this is our current version, so we still have it. So one of the things I want to show you in terms of like how things can possibly break is in this change nest table, right? Right now, where's my migration status? Let's find out. Bloop, bloop, bloop. I have all of these, right? So if I were to add something to this, like nests, right? Talk me through this. How do I write this?
Do.
Yeah? Okay.
T.
What is T?
T.
So equivalent, right?
Yeah.
Cool. And what's this?
If the say what our column names are going to be. Well, first you have to say T dot to say the table and whatever
Data format.
data.
Data format? So who actually remembers it's like T dot data format? Okay, so I'm going to show you, like, I'm going to explain to you why that would make sense as opposed to like why it would break. So this right here, right? What does this look familiar? Like do and pipes. What does that look like? Like array dot each do pipes, like item in array, right? And then we do what? Item in array. And then what can we do? If this is an object, we can call attribute on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That means that this attribute must exist in this array. All right? Like if I were to call something like if let's say I didn't define the method within that class, this like wouldn't really work, right? Like whatever this method was, if it wasn't in the class of this instance, it would break. Did that make sense? Like, let's just say the array was an array of people, of peeps, right? And each item in this array was like person. So what's this? Right, this is the first person in there, right? And I can call built-in methods. All right, I can also call methods that I wrote in the person class. All right, but if I called something like this in there and I definitely didn't define this bizarre method, it'll break. Because that method's not defined in the class. In the same way that in this table object, I'm calling on something specific that I already know is built into this table, right? Let's just say nests had a name. There's a name attribute. And I were to do this, and I did it backwards. Would there be a name attribute in the table? Right? Like, you couldn't possibly name, like, what is this? This is like the custom attribute that I'm going to put in, right? Like, the nest can also probably have, like, color. Like, it's a black nest or a green nest, you know, blue nest. Like, remember when we had imagination, like, in kindergarten? So you couldn't possibly have every single one of those methods built into this table object. It makes more sense that it's probably string, integer, date time, because those are all formats that are, like, predefined. The table object will probably know about it. So that's why if you ever kind of get this twisted, right, like, that is the format, and that would make more sense. If you're ever wondering, like, oh man, I switched them, even if you just took 2 seconds to think about it, switching them wouldn't work. All right, cool. Is that cool right now? All right, so what does my schema show? Is it in there now? Huh? Right? If I run migrate, what happens? Nothing. Why? I've already migrated, even though I changed this file. It's not going to happen. So what happens when I do rollback? Huh? Why?
You scroll up.
Whoa. This is the error. But why is this happening?
Because we made changes to the file, so we're rolling it back. It's not the same as the file beforehand.
Yes.
So that create table wasn't there when we originally migrated.
Mhm.
So when we roll it back, that shouldn't be there.
Yes. So what he's saying is, I added this information, so when I tried rolling it back, it sees that there's no new information in there, and it can't roll it back to what I had because it's already different. This should seem like an extremely familiar concept. Who here has run into a git merge conflict? All right? When you get into that conflict, it's because when you're trying to merge, it still thinks the old file is the old file. So when you're trying to merge and all of a sudden somebody else pushed changes to it, and now you want to push changes, it's trying to change the old file that's now a new file. So this is the error that you'll see, and it'll break. Because what it does is it's going to read this, and it's going to try to roll it back to what it was, which is why you shouldn't change it after you migrate. Because the error here is this: drop table nests. No such table. Here it thinks the nest table already exists, so I want to roll it back to a previous state, but the nest table didn't actually exist yet because I just added this code after the migration. So it's reading this as it is right now, which is why it's not going to work. right? So what do we have it as? Like it was empty, right? So let's roll back. Cool. That's like one of those things that you'll see often. But now if I wanted to, I can drop this in and I can db what? Cool. If I can spell it right. Nice. Create table, migrated. There's actually some time there. So what should my schema reflect? The correct version, 153926. 153926. That's the last one.
So your rollback failed, right? Your rollback failed, right? It didn't work, right?
You tell me, did my rollback fail?
Or you just give an error and it still work. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, you want to know if it actually executed even though there was an error. Okay. Break aborted.
So you never work.
Yeah.
How do you get the migrate to work this time?
Did anyone want to answer that question? The question was, how did I get the migration to work when I ran it again?
Evans rolled back again, and then migrated.
Or he took out the,
You made them so
or he took it out?
Yeah. When I ran the rollback and it failed,
Yes.
it's because there was information in here that was new
Yeah.
than when I originally migrated.
Yes.
So I removed it.
Okay.
Then I ran rollback, which successfully rolled back. Then I added the code back in, then I migrated.
Okay, got it.
Yeah? Cool. Am I good now? Yeah? All right, cool. So that's how this like schema is a visual representation. Right? It'd be a nightmare to like go through every single one of these to see, all right, hey, what columns are in my database? It's nice to just click one file and see all of them. And let's do that. So what we should do, go away. Go away, you. Oh, whoops. It'll go away eventually, I guess. No? Does anyone know how to do that? Let's just make it go away.
Check automatic hide.
Oh, why was that not? Anyways, that was bizarre. Thank you for that. Cool. So what we should do is probably what? Let's check the notes. Oops. Create the migrations. We tested it. Now we need to create the table details. So what does this look like? The details? But what do we just make? The details in what? Nests? We probably want details in all of them, right? So how do I do that? Let's get familiar. Rollback, right? Why do I want to roll back?
Because we need to change the file.
Yes. Yes, I need to change this squirrel file and this tree file. So I need to roll back nests, roll back trees, roll back squirrels, change them, and then remigrate. Yeah? Let's do that. Bloop. Am I good right here? Should I just start changing stuff? No, I need to roll back all the way, otherwise I'll run into that same error. I should not be adding stuff to a migration file after I have migrated that file. You want to make all your changes, then you want to migrate them over. Make your changes, then migrate. If you need to make a change, roll it back, make the change, remigrate. Okay? So, what are we doing here? Look familiar? A little bit of this magic. Yeah? Anything else for squirrel? Just name? No, we'll keep it classy. Nothing wild. What about trees? Anything else besides name? Do we want any attributes besides name? Kind? Sure. Yeah? Is that cool? I know it's after lunch. You got that like lunch fog, but it's cool though. Mega bless. All right. That's it? All right. No, I mean, we don't need any additional attributes. I was just trying to like poll the audience, right? So what about nests? Are we cool with nests?
No.
Okay. So how do I add that? And what is this? Yeah? Yeah?
Yeah.
Why am I putting squirrel ID and tree ID in here?
Join table.
Hmm?
You have join tables and that is belong to schools and they belong to trees. So that's why.
Yes. So, if something belongs to something else, it has the foreign key. This is what's known as the foreign key, right? Who did not get that? If it belongs to something else, it has the foreign key. The nest belongs to the squirrel, and the nest belongs to the tree, right? That's where the foreign key goes. And the only reason nests have the foreign key is because, what? I have to put the object, tree and squirrel, into the nest, right? Do you remember like a little bit of the OO stuff? Is this all making sense right now?
Yeah.
So where is ID coming from? I don't actually have an ID column in Squirrel, do I?
It's created by active record.
Where is it coming from?
Primary key.
Yes. It's a concept called primary key. Right? Who understands the concept of primary key? All right, cool. Nice. So we got foreign key and primary key. Yeah? So who understands the concept behind foreign key? Who wants me to dive just for 2 minutes into foreign key? Awesome. All right. So what's next? What do I do now? Yes. Now I should migrate, right? Cool. So now all my migrations have run successfully. I should check to see what? I check the schema, right? Now I've got a visual representation of my database. Remember when I said that? Visual representation of my database. These are all my tables, all the columns in there. So if I make a migration later, then I want to add in a column later on, it will appear in my active record. And it would be confusing to try to see, all right, when I first made my tree, and now I wanted to add another row, another column to my tree table. I don't want to have to look through all my migration files to see, like, oh, I added this column like a month later. I added this column 2 months later. Then I added these columns. Then like manually count all the columns I added. And then also go through and see which ones I deleted. The schema is just a quick visual representation of all the columns, all the datas, and all the tables in your database. Yeah? Awesome. So, let's go back to the notes, all right? What did we do? We did this. Oops. We added this functionality. Oop. Yeah? Any questions on this? This is how we created the table details, right? So what's now? Cool. How do we test? Nice. All right. Any other questions so far on this? All right. We skipped an important step. I was hoping someone would say something. We establish the relationships, all right? Do we ever create the models? No. So what were we going to do next, you know? We need the models. The models talk to the database, right? So we have app, we have models. Probably a good place to put them. So let's do that. What does my file structure look like? Touch inside my app folder, inside my models folder. What models do I have here? Yeah? What else? And what? All right. So pluralize or no? Do I capitalize the file name? So no capitalize on the file name and no plural, right? So boom, magic. So what do we have here? We have nest, squirrel, and tree. So which one should I build first? Cool. Why not nest? That's like the join, right? So cool. So how do I do this? Wow, that was awful. All right. S or no? Cool. Nice. You're really getting it. And it added the S anyway. Sorry. Oh my. That is not helpful. I'm not developing with pleasure right now. Cool. What do I need in here? Do I define initialize or?
No.
Why?
You need to do an active
What? Oh, nice. So I don't have to like make all those like methods again. What am I inheriting from?
active record.
Like this? Does that look right? Cool. So I don't have to do any of the define initialize. I don't need the adder readers, adder accessors, none of that. All right? Cool. So what should I do now? Huh? I should test, yes. You're right, I should. So let's do it. Okay, right? Got me good. You got me good. How do I test? Why am I going rate console? Hmm?
Because all the data have we already set all the data into the rec console.
Perfect. All the data is inside rate console. How did it get there? How did I get all my app data, all my model data into rate console? I needed it. Yes, so I require all of the data. Man, that sounds so familiar. Yeah, I require all my app, right? So, super familiar looking. This, require all app in the config file. Yeah. And then in my rake, I have everything from my config file, which is everything. And then I have this rake task. It just starts a new price hash. So like in theory, this is running binding.pry at the end of all of my code. That's what it's really doing, all right? So I'm gonna open a new price hash because it's gonna have all my stuff. So should I have tree? Should I have nest? Should I have squirrel? Done. Right, that test worked, all right? Because I inherited, what should I have access to? Huh? I should have access to all the active record methods that are built in, right? Which is why I didn't need to do the define initialize. I didn't need to do the adder readers, right? So what's one I can kind of check right now? Class? Class is a Ruby thing. Like I could check the class of a class because it inherits from object. So that's not inheriting from active record. This method looks familiar, right? And what should it return me? So now I know for a fact, because I didn't define all inside my method, I'm just inheriting, I inherited properly. Meaning, in here, right, it can be confusing. What if you put migration in here instead of base? Or you spelled something wrong here? This is not going to work. So I'm just testing to see I've accurately inherited. Yeah? So, now that we know that works, a little bit of this. Oops. Command A, Command C. Little tree. Bloop, 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 bloop. Right? Yeah? And what I can do, bloop, 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 bloop. So I know that that's working, right? I probably don't need to do this because it was like a copy paste, but you get it? And I just tested. So let's update our notes. All right? Create the models. So how do we do that? Class, Let me just drop this. Oops. Bloop, bloop, bloop. A little bit of Ruby action, so we see that. I end that, and then I want to make sure I'm inheriting from. Any questions? Yeah? This is like pretty good, yeah? So when I said like test in the right console, it should have been like a thing. So what did I do? I went to the right console and I just tested to see if it worked. So another thing you can always do is like just test one of the methods here. All right, to make sure that it's accurately inheriting. Anything else? So far, from 1 to, look at the schema. We did the migration. Any questions? Up until the migration, the rollbacks, the drop, and how I got here. Awesome. All right. So now we're going to do something amazing. I'm going to make seed data. All right. Who can tell me what seed data was? I heard it, but Steve. Yes, test data. See, when you say test, I get all excited. I want to test something. But it's your test data. So let's do it. Where would I put the seeds? In here? What? This amazing file called seeds. Yeah? Check. Cool. So how do I make new things? I mean, look kind of familiar. Just like this? Is this okay?
No.
Huh?
If we want to store it to the database, we wouldn't use new.
Right? Would new work? Why would new not work? Since I saw a lot of head shaking. Absolutely. All right. So in theory, I can do squirrel.new. All right. I can give it a name, and it'd be your boy. So what does ID nil indicate to me?
It's not in the database.
Why is it not in the database if the ID is nil?
Because every line in the database has an ID.
Yeah. So once it gets saved to the database, remember we talked about primary key, right? The ID is the primary key. Once it's saved into the database, it will now have a primary key. So I can put S1 equals to squirrel.new. So what is S1? I can call .save on it, right? True. So what is S1? This squirrel instance. All right. I can also just have done instead. And this could be, what's a cool squirrel name?
Sources.
Spell that for me?
XERXES.
Well, I heard he's a generous God, so. This is where the question comes. Was I the only one that heard the question?
What's the question?
I'll play. Johnny, what's the question? All right, it's cool. Let's just awkwardly blow past that. Yeah. No, Johnny, I think you said question, and then.
Persian king.
Oh, Persian king. Oh, nice. Respect the wealth. Cool. Yeah, Ja. Money. So this now added to my database. If you saw very subtly, this changed a little bit. You probably couldn't see it, but either way. Notice how, like, in my schema, I can't actually see any of my instances. I can't see any of the data that's in my database, right? That's why this is just a visual representation of your database, like the structure of it. You're not going to actually see all the squirrels that are in here. How would I do that? Yeah? And you should know what's happening under the hood here already, right? Remember we did OO, self.all, and then returns instance. Yeah? So that's what's happening under the hood here. That's all.
So just to confirm, if you create a new instance, you have to save it and create does the same thing as well.
Yes, to clarify, new and save is what create is. Create does new and save at the same time. Yeah. You will find a practical use for calling new and then calling save, but for right now, you just use create. Create will do both. And then we'll get to later on when you'll want to split them up. It'll make more sense. Unless you just want an example, or are you guys good?
We're good.
Awesome. Nice. So in that same way, my seeds, let's just slap a little bit. Slap a bit of that. Yeah? And then what else? I can do this again, right? And then again, and then just change the name. But then I'm hard coding all of these names, right? Like Persian king, right? And this is like Mrs. Respect the Wealth, right? I have to like come up with all these names, and that sucks. So glad you asked, David. What a great question for this exact moment. How would I use Faker here? Well, do I have access to Faker? Okay. Do I have access to pry? So I just drop the binding.pry here. It'll work. Well, let me put you this way. Do I need to have pry in this file? Let's just think of some synonyms for need. Like require. Cool. This looks familiar. I need to require pry. So let me ask you again. Do I have access to Faker in here? No. Cool. Bet. Yeah? So I'm just being a little facetious, but this is why, like, if you're trying to use Faker and it runs you an error, it says like Faker doesn't exist. It's not because you didn't bundle install. It's not because the gem's not there. It's just because you're not requiring it. Common mistake. So instead of this, let's check out what is Faker. Okay, that was weird. Okay, because it's here. Boom. Let's check it out. All I typed in was literally Faker API. And no, I don't like Merrick. It's not cool. Where is this? It's like Stimpy. Yeah, this one. This dude. This one. Yeah. So I just put Faker Ruby. You see how like you can get better at Googling? You just make sure you put in the language that you're trying to learn. When you hit Mod 3 and you're like Googling stuff and you get a bunch of like Python and Ruby answers, you're like, and then you just add JavaScript on there. And then it'll help you. Because then you'll narrow your search down. Sweet. So let's troll through these docs together and figure out how we can do this. So cool logo. This build passing means that right now, if I install Faker, it will work. Sometimes you'll see this as red and it'll say failing. That means that as you install a gem, some or all of it will not work. I'm just letting you know so like you can understand how to read docs, right? This is a professional production grade gem. So you kind of understand what the gem version is and all that. One of the biggest things when you look at a gem is you look at when it was last updated. If this said 4 years ago, the gem is probably deprecated. You're probably not using it. But this is literally 5 days ago, 2 days ago, a month ago. Anything in like the 0 to 9, 10, 11, 12 month mark, like if it's within a year, it's probably okay. The newer, the better. Yeah? Just like a pro tip. So, boom, boom, boom. I can read this. Awesome. Notes are cool. Contents installing. Right? So, gem install Faker. We did that already with bundle, right? We just put gem Faker in our bundle file. Then we ran bundle install. And that's going to install Faker for us. That's how we did that. You could specify where you want it. Like really specify. Even if you want it only on the master branch. Or if you want it on feature branch 1 or whatever. Don't worry about it. Gem Faker. Yeah? Cool. How do I use this? Require Faker. Cool. Faker namespace dot name. It looks like Faker is some sort of module. and there's a name class in it, and the dot name is a what kind of method? Instance or class? Instance or class? Definitely class, because I'm calling it on the name class, right? And it's going to return to me Christophe Bartel, some random name. In the same way that I have an internet class, and I can call the email method that generates me a random email. That's how I'm just reading the docs right now, right? And so, cool. I can use something called unique to make sure that I never run into like the same name again. Unique generator. And it's just awesome. Like you can literally, these docs are one of the best docs that are out there. That's why Faker is so popular. So you can configure it. We're not going to go into that. All right. And that's really about it. That's like the whole gem file. This is all the instructions on it. Any questions on that? On like how I read through those docs, how I'm going to utilize it. Sweet. So what kind of squirrel names do we want to give? Right? We have Harry Potter, Hey Arnold, K-pop. We have military.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. You cool with Lord of the Rings? Cool. So how do I use this? Oh, okay. Looks like all of our squirrels will be Lord of the Rings characters. This will be good. This will be good. This is going to be money. All right. How would I do this? Where would I put Faker? After name? Blue? All right. And that's going to give me another one. And that's going to give me another one, right? What does this look like to you? Repetition? I don't know if you've seen this before. What? Yeah? No? All right. We're not going to do that, but if you need to generate a lot of seed data quick, you just do an iterator, right? Like 10 times do, or whatever. Yeah? Instead of like writing out all these. I'm a little bit lazy, but I want to just show you. So, what's going to happen here? I want to be able to test where I do it. So this is important, right? Making them squirrels dough. All right? Dough. Cool. Except, what if, all right, and I put here, puts, let me just put it here, puts done. The reason I do this is because I want to see the squirrels get created. And I'll show you what that means. Let's zoom out a little bit. Let's get out of here. How would I get my seed files? How would I execute my seed files? How would I run my seed files? Huh? Nice, thank you. Break DBC, yeah? So what is this going to do? It's going to execute my seeds file. That's all it's going to do. So you see it just says making them squirrels though, and then done. If I didn't put the puts in there, what happens? Let's find out. Bloop. 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 What's going to happen? Nice. That was not at all helpful, right? Would you, I mean, like, who would know with 100% certainty if your seed file ran? Just seeing this.
You could test it.
You could, right? I'd have to go in there and I have to find out if more squirrels were made. That's painful. No thanks. I'd rather just, making them squirrels dough, and it puts done with squirrels. All right? So what does this look like? Probably some sort of pattern. Yeah? Probably want to do what now? Yeah? What do we put for tree? I can go to the tree, all right, like the migration file, but what's easier? So I know it has a name and a kind. That's where I'm pulling the data quickly, and I'm seeing it as a visual representation of my database. Yeah? So, boop, boop, boop. Seeds. Name and kind. So what do we want our tree names to be? Let's go back to Faker. This is fun. Huh? We did Lord of the Rings, right? We could do, let's see, we got dogs, esports, Dragon Ball? Fine. Dragon Ball? Dragon Ball? You guys are. Wow. All right, cool. What a very interesting. All right, just characters. Watch out, Vegeta, Goku, and Gohan about to bring it down. All right, cool. And what kind of? What do we have? Kind. All right. What has like a type in here? Demographic, color, coffee. Demographic probably, yeah. Maybe like a type or something. Marital status? That's a weird tree name. I don't know. Food. Let's name them food. Yeah. Let's make them fruits, right? Well, just a bunch of fruit trees. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Cool. Does everyone understand like what I'm doing here? I'm just ripping it. And now you too can do this. The power is yours. Nobody? All right. Thank you. Sweet. All right. So puts done with trees. And here's why I do this. Let's just say, right, I do something bizarre like I put namna, right, name. What will happen?
You won't see the second.
I probably won't see this, right? But what if I did something weird and I made a typo or I put validations in and that like it doesn't work? This is why it's important. This is where I can trace exactly what happened. I'm making them squirrels, though. Done. I'm making them trees and then rake aborts. See what I'm saying? Like it never hits trees are done. So when I have a really long seed file with more than 3 models, I can see exactly where it breaks. That's why I want to put these are. These are just, you don't have to do this. This is just a pro tip for production. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's move on. Let's move quickly.
One question.
Yes.
So every single time you run this, are you adding new instances to the scroll?
Yeah. So now I'm going to have like 1,000 squirrels. Yeah. So, and I'm going to show you a pro tip. All right. So what? Making nests. Cool. What do nests have? Who remembers where to look? All right. What is it? Name, scroll ID, tray ID? Man, you guys are really into names. All right. I'm just going to pick one quickly. What are some good nest names? All right. Funny name. Cool. Funny name.name. I'd be really sad if it said funny name.name and it said Evans Wang. Like, I would really hurt the feels. All right. And then what? Squirrel ID and tree ID. How do I do this? How do I do this? Huh? I could do like a random number generator, right? That would make a lot of sense. So let's find out where the problem is. Right? What's going to happen when I do this? Why did that break actually? Oh, I forgot the comma between this and this. Yeah, you're right. Good shout. Let me just do a little bit of this. Just kidding. Bloop. Bloop. Yeah, pro move. I'll show you how to do it later. Cool. They're all done, right? So let's do rake console because that's what I want to test it now, right? How many will I have in here? A lot, because every time I ran seed, a new scroll got made. I have a lot, right? I have 9. So the issue that I'm thinking about is like, how do I get all of this, the IDs? What if you did, what if we did this? What happens? That should have dropped the seed data. John, you know why I didn't drop?
Yeah, you have to exit Julia.
It should have dropped.
Well, if you exit
If I bang out of it. What does this drop do? Drops the database, yeah. What the heck?
Drop doesn't reseed, does it?
No, it definitely does not. That's what reset does. I think drop is just broken in Sinatra. It should drop. It should have cleared that out. All right. All right. So here's what I want to show you. All right. So let's get back into the console. All right. I can do squirrel. Down first. Yeah. What's that gonna give me? First one, and I can do destroy. Yeah. And now, what is scrolled out first? It's the first ID. So squirrel.all, I only have 2 through 9. Yeah? So what's the problem with hard coding these values? Let me ask you this. If I reseed and I make this new squirrel, what ID will this squirrel take? 10. It will not take 1. Check. It won't take 1. So if I hard code and I do this, it's going to be tricky. So in order to get 1 back, I got to blow it away. I had to delete it. Yeah? I didn't actually click delete. That's why.
Could you like maybe like a scroll dot on sample dot ID? You just chain those. And you just like, fill them in.
Yes, that is probably the best way to do it. If you put random number, you don't really know what IDs you have and you don't have as you start to edit and delete your database. It would just be like squirrel dot all dot ID. Like random and then like dot ID. You just like pick a random squirrel that you actually have and then just call its ID. It's probably the best way. But for now, don't sweat it. All right? That's just, all I'm trying to do is explain to you what's happening in the database. As you run into errors, I want you to see kind of what's going on and how to fix it. Does that make sense? Does that work for everybody? Cool. So now that's kind of bad because this is broken now. Let's make this 9. Any questions so far? Probably need to make more nests, so I'm just going to do this.
can't do one.
Huh?
The last one you made squirrel ID one.
Oh, okay. All right. Shreddy, like, I don't know. It's fine. So does everyone kind of understand what happened just now? Why I just made more? I'm gonna run the seed file. Cool. So now I should have a lot of trees and nests and a lot of different associations. Yeah? But how do I actually make these associations? Right? So how do we do this with the Ruby, the test data? I basically did this. I ran this. Yeah? So don't forget your require faker. You don't have to use faker. Faker just helps those that are not ultra mega creative not waste time of thinking like of cool seed data names. It's not really important. I'm sorry I didn't realize that you couldn't really see this. Is that better? Sorry. Just say something, you know? Am I scared? All right. Questions so far?
I'm wondering if you can use create after create in the seed.rb. Can you use create and question? No, the
Question mark, the bang.
No, the exclamation mark.
Mm-hmm.
And it say I remember the document says
Yeah.
if you use the exclamation mark.
It'll tell you what the errors
there's
are.
some-
So, good question. You want to know what this is, right?
Yeah,
Who kno- Who knows what this does?
I mean, if there's something well done, it will shows there's an error, so you know it's not done.
Yeah. So if you remember when we earlier we messed up, it says there was like syntax error. Like this right here is if I have a syntax error. If you have, and you haven't learned about it yet, something known as validations, what you can do is you can create certain validations to make sure that I cannot successfully create a nest without a name. Like right now, if I did this, it'll actually work. I'm sorry. This. It'll actually work. Because name will just come up as nil. Alright? We don't want name to be nil, so I'm putting something in there. But you can actually force it to see that if it doesn't give a name, it'll give you an error. It'll say must have name. And that's a validation. If you use something like this with the bang, and I actually did this, and I had the validation in, the seeds will stop and say, hey, nest must be initialized with a name. It'll tell you the error. So that's what the bang is for. Usually in production, you'll see the bang. All right? And that's probably something you picked up in your labs, right? Cool. Any other questions? That's a good question. Thank you. All right. Now, what do we need to do? We made this. What should we do? Yes, great. So scroll.all, right? What kind of associations do I want to test, right? What is the association between the squirrel and the nest? Because remember, you have, like, sorry, just bear with me. You have a squirrel up here, and you have a tree up here. I don't need this. All right? And then you have the join for the nest in the middle. Do you want me to draw it? Do you want me to use the web app or no? No. All right. So what is the relationship between squirrel and nest? Squirrel what? What? Like this? Okay. And what is the relationship between squirrel and tree?
As many trees.
Yes. So it's really important. Remember, how does the squirrel know about the tree? It only knows the tree through the nest. Right? So I like say these words so that like when you write them, it's so much easier. Is there a comma here then? And then it's like through like this and then nests. I think it's like that. Is there a comma?
There's a comma.
Yeah. Cool. Does that make sense? So I should test. This is like really important to test right now. So let's do that. So I take my squirrel and I take the first one. Because remember, I want the instance. I don't want to do squirrel.all because then I can't call what? Instance methods on an array. So I need the first one. So on the first one, I want to see what nests there are. Yeah? And there they go. I have how many nests associated with squirrel ID 2? 1, 2, 3, 4. And notice the squirrel ID is 2 on all of them. That's how I know it's coming back with the correct information. Yeah? So in the same way that if I did squirrel.find, right, with an ID of, I think there's like an ID 10 in there. Cool. And what are the nests here? Probably none because I didn't add them. Right? That's how I know it's working. Because if you look at my seed data, I didn't put any double digits in the squirrel ID. So it should be empty. This is correct and this is working. That's how I tested it. So the squirrel's good. All right, what's next? Tree, all right? So what's the association between tree and squirrel? What? Has many what? Yeah? It's good? It only knows them what?
Through the nest.
Okay. Like this, right? Now, this is very important. What's the relationship between tree and nests? Huh? Has many?
I think it has to be swap the relationship because we don't
Yes. So you have many nests, right? The way this code reads, and this is very important, is that I have many squirrels through nests. At this point, on line 3, nest does not exist. Nest only exists on line 4, so this will break immediately. So what this really means is, is I know my squirrels through the nests. So I'm actually going to go into the nests class, and it's going to do this. And then look for the relationship to squirrels. Does that make sense? That's what it's doing. So will it work right now? Let's find out. What did I just do? Tree. Dot first. It's my first tree instance, right? Dot what? Dot nests. Will this association work? Good. What about the squirrels? So check this error message out. An active record is really your friend. Has many associations through association not found. I did not find it. Squirrel or squirrels in the model nest. Try has many squirrels through nests. Don't worry about the source right now. All right? And the reason that exists is because in my tree, when I go through squirrels, when I'm looking for squirrels, I'm going through the nests. Inside nest must have an association with squirrel. Who understood that? It's so important. Please raise your hand. Please. If you understood what I just said, raise your hand. Nice and high. Okay, so you got that. Cool. So let's do nest then. What is the relationship with squirrel and nest? A nest what? Squirrel. Squirrel or squirrels? It's singular because it belongs to one squirrel, right? The plural wouldn't make sense. So just think about that. And then the same thing with what? So tree or trees? Right? Just take a look. Has many nests, meaning there must be more than one nest in there, right? So if you're using has many, pluralize. If you're using the belongs to, singular. It's just more readable, and it's actually good English, and it actually makes sense. Check. So let's save, because I don't want to make that mistake. Embarrassing. I don't think I saved tree either. Cool. So now, let's do it. Rate console. I can do both the squirrel.trees. Wait, no. The first one, right? I want the actual instance. Dot trees. And it'll give me the trees that I'm in. It'll give me all the information. I can do, give me the first one in this array. And then I can get the first one in this array, and I can ask for its name. Or I can ask for its kind. And that is how the associations are working. Now I'm done. What are your questions? Yeah, that was it start to finish. Do you have any questions? Awesome.